The court thought Lily Mercer's drawing proved Grace Holloway was lying. But the red door was not a fantasy. It was a map. That was what Victoria Hale's lawyer did not want anyone to understand when he stood before the judge and held the paper high enough for the gallery to see. A white house. A red door. A tree leaning toward the roof. One upstairs window split by a dark line. "Ask yourselves," he said, his voice smooth and certain, "why a child would draw the same frightening image again and again unless someone kept feeding it to her." Grace Holloway sat behind the foster parents' table with both hands folded around a pen she had not used all morning. She knew how it looked. A poor foster mother trying to keep a wealthy family's child. A night shift nurse with no husband, no large home, no polished family portrait to place before the court. Victoria Hale had brought everything Grace did not have. Photographs, lawyers, a statement about family healing, a promise that Lily would finally return to where she belonged. But Victoria had also brought one mistake. When her lawyer called the drawing a fantasy, Victoria did not look confused. She looked relieved, as if the room had stepped close to a locked door, heard something breathing behind it, and then politely turned away. Grace saw it. Evan Cole, the social worker, saw it too. And Lily, sitting with her knees pressed together beneath a coat Grace had sewn by hand, whispered six words no one at the front table was meant to hear.
No, I didn't.
The back lock was always broken. The courtroom kept moving, as if nothing had happened. The lawyer kept speaking. Victoria kept her perfect posture. But Grace had stopped listening to all of them, because Lily had never told her about a back door. And by 4 o'clock, that whisper would matter more than every polished lie in the room. 6 hours earlier, the red door had been on Grace's kitchen table. It was 7:12 in the morning, and the apartment still carried the tired smell of reheated coffee, laundry, soap, and rain against old windows. Grace stood at the sink with one hand around a mug she had forgotten to drink from, watching Lily press a purple crayon so hard against the paper that the tip snapped. Lily did not flinch. She only reached for another crayon. The house was always the same at first. A square, white body, a roof that leaned slightly left, a red front door, colored again and again until the wax turned shiny. Beside it, a tree bent toward the roof like it was trying to listen. Grace had seen that tree 17 times. She knew because Dr. Elise Warren had told her to keep every picture. "Don't throw away what she repeats," the therapist had said after Lily's 3rd session. Children do not always remember in sentences. Sometimes they remember in patterns. So Grace kept the drawings in a blue folder behind the cereal boxes. If Lily wanted to sleep with one under her pillow, Grace tucked the blanket over both the child and the paper. She had learned not to demand the truth from a child who had survived by burying it. That morning, Lily added something new. Grace watched the crayon move to the upstairs window, a dark line. Then another. Then a sharp split in the glass, shaped almost like a crooked V. Grace set the mug down. "New window?" she asked softly. Lily's hand stopped. Grace regretted it at once. Too direct. Too fast. Pushed too hard. And Lily's silence became a locked room. But Lily did not fold the paper. She looked at the window she had drawn and whispered, "It was there before." Grace kept her face calm, though something in her chest moved. Before what? Before the foster placement? Before the nightmares? Before the Hale family had reappeared with lawyers and framed photographs and language about healing? Grace wanted to ask. Instead, she reached for the small plastic container on the counter. Blueberries or banana slices with breakfast? Lily glanced up. "Both? Both is expensive," Grace said. Lily's mouth tightened. Grace tipped the last blueberries beside the toast. "Luckily, I am reckless." That earned half a smile, not enough for a stranger to notice. Enough for Grace. The apartment was small, and the Hale's attorney would make sure the judge heard every inch of it. One bedroom, one narrow living room with a second-hand couch that folded out at night,
I don't want to go.
a kitchen table with 2 chairs, though Lily had recently started pulling a third chair from the corner and leaving it empty beside her. Grace never asked who the third chair was for. The bear's name was Button. Not Mr. Buttons. Not Teddy. Button, singular. Because Lily had said the bear only had one button left when Grace found him at a church donation table. After Grace repaired the torn seam under his arm, Lily carried him everywhere except therapy, where she made him wait in Grace's purse, so he didn't hear the hard parts. Grace checked the microwave clock. 10:15. The hearing began at 10. Judge Marianne Vale had already refused one delay. By 4 o'clock, unless Grace could bring something more solid than concern, the temporary custody order could be signed. Temporary. That was the word everyone kept using, as if temporary could not break a child. Lily slid the drawing across the table. Should I bring it? Grace looked at the red door until the color seemed too bright for the gray morning. Do you want to? Lily shrugged, but her fingers stayed on the corner of the paper. I don't want her to have it. Grace knew who her meant. Victoria Hale had visited once under supervision 2 weeks earlier. She arrived in cream wool, smelling faintly of gardenias, and knelt in front of Lily with the careful gentleness of a woman being observed. My sweet girl, Victoria had said. Lily had stared at the floor. Victoria reached for the stuffed bear. And who is this handsome little fellow? Lily pulled Button against her chest so quickly the visitation worker wrote something down. Afterward, Victoria told the court liaison that Grace had clearly trained the child to reject family contact. Grace had stayed composed until Lily fell asleep. Then she stood in the bathroom with the shower running, one palm against the sink, trying to breathe quietly. She was good at holding herself together in front of children, but she had never learned how to stay steady when the child was hers in every way except the one the court recognized. Not hers. That was another phrase people used like it was harmless. Grace packed the blue folder before breakfast went cold. Therapy notes, school reports, the incident form from the day Lily froze in class because another child had painted the classroom door red for a Valentine's Day display. A letter from Lily's teacher, describing how Lily calmed only after Grace arrived and waited beside her until Lily reached first. At the bottom, Grace placed the drawings in chronological order. The earliest one was dated 3 months before Victoria Hale filed for custody. That had to matter. If Lily had drawn the red door before anyone knew the Hales wanted her back, then Grace could not have invented it to poison the case. Still, paper was fragile against money. Grace knew what Victoria would bring. A family home with 6 bedrooms. A private school brochure. A therapist already selected. Relatives who had not asked to see Lily in years but had suddenly remembered blood once a trust fund became part of the file. Grace had read the petition 3 times. It did not mention love until page 4. It mentioned assets on page 2. Grace did not tell Lily that. She buttoned Lily's coat instead. The navy one with the patch on the left sleeve. Grace had mended it after a nightmare sent Lily crawling under the kitchen table, snagging the fabric on an exposed screw. A new coat would have been easier, but Lily had asked if broken things always got thrown away. So Grace found thread the same color as the lining and stayed up until nearly 2 in the morning making the patch neat. Now Lily looked down at it. Will they say it's bad? Grace crouched. They might, because it's not new. Because some people think new means safe. Lily considered that. Does it? Grace smoothed the collar. Not always. Lily tucked the red door drawing into the inside pocket of the coat, close to her shirt. Grace did not stop her. The bus ride to the courthouse took 48 minutes. They sat near the back, Lily by the window, Grace beside her with the blue folder on her lap and Button hidden in her tote bag. Halfway downtown, Lily leaned against her. Do judges know when grown-ups lie? Grace looked at the reflection of their faces in the bus window. Lily's was small and serious. Grace's looked older than 36. Judges listen to what people bring them, Grace said.
You'll be safe with
so
this, Bea.
we bring the truth as carefully as we can. What if the truth is little? Grace thought of the drawings in the folder. The broken crayon. The window with the dark split. The way Victoria had never once used Button's correct name. Then we don't let anyone step on it. At the courthouse entrance, Evan Cole was waiting near security with a tablet under one arm and the expression of a man who had practiced neutrality until it became a second skin. "Miss Holloway," he said. "Lily." Lily moved half a step behind Grace. Evan noticed. His eyes dropped briefly to the coat pocket where the corner of the drawing showed. "Is that for the hearing?" he asked. "It's Lily's," Grace said. "She decides what happens to it." Evan held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. Inside the courthouse, Victoria Hale stood near the elevators with two attorneys and a young woman Grace did not recognize. Victoria looked as if grief had been tailored for her. Black dress, pearl earrings. One hand resting lightly over her heart whenever someone spoke Lily's name. When Lily saw her, she reached for Grace's sleeve. Not the hand. The sleeve. The patched one. Victoria's eyes slid down to the patch, then to Grace's shoes, then back to Grace's face. "Grace," she said warmly, as if they were two women meeting outside a church luncheon. "I hope today can be peaceful." Grace knew better than to answer the sentence Victoria had spoken instead of the one she meant. Behind Victoria, the young attorney opened a folder and whispered, "Mrs. Hale, we should review the trust language before." Victoria turned sharply. "Not here, Claire." The young woman's mouth closed. Grace looked at the folder in Claire's hands. Trust language. Then Victoria smiled again, but the smile arrived a second late. A clerk called their case at 9:58. Lily reached into her coat and touched the folded drawing. "I want to keep it," she whispered. "Then keep it," Grace said. They walked into the courtroom with the red door hidden against Lily's heart, the blue folder under Grace's arm, and less than 6 hours before a judge might send a frightened child back to a family that had already begun lying before the hearing even started. The hearing began with photographs. Grace's legal aid attorney, Mara Singh, sat beside the blue folder, underfunded and outnumbered but alert. Victoria Hale's attorney placed them on the evidence table one by one, each inside a clear sleeve. A brick house with white columns. A Christmas staircase wrapped in garland. A long dining table set for 12. Victoria beside Lily's late mother, Anna Mercer, at a fundraiser. Their dresses matched in color, though their smiles did not. Anna's looked caught. Victoria's looked practiced. "Your Honor," the attorney said, "the Hale family is not asking this court to disrupt Lily Mercer's life. They are asking this court to restore it." Grace felt Lily shift beside her. Restore. The word landed softly, but it carried teeth. Judge Marianne Vale adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Langford, I have reviewed the emergency motion. Please proceed without turning this into a speech for the gallery." "Of course, Your Honor." But the gallery had already seen what he wanted them to see. Grace in her clearance rack jacket. Victoria in black wool made only for her. Lily between them, small enough that every adult in the room seemed to believe they knew what was best. Victoria was called first. She walked to the witness chair with a tissue folded in her palm. Not used, only visible. The oath was given. She sat with soft shoulders and a voice clear enough to fill the room. "Lily is my sister's child," Victoria said. "After Anna died, there was confusion, grief, mistakes made by many people. But Lily belongs with her family." Grace lowered her eyes to the blue folder. On the top page was Dr. Warren's note. "Lily becomes physically rigid when adults use belonging language." Grace had underlined that sentence the night before, then hated underlining a child's fear like homework. Mr. Langford stepped closer. "Mrs. Hale, have you prepared a home for Lily?" "Yes," Victoria said. "Her room is ready. It overlooks the garden. We kept several of Anna's things for her." He turned one photograph toward the judge, a pale yellow bedroom, new furniture, a white canopy bed, untouched books. Grace looked at Lily's hands. They were hidden inside her coat sleeves. "And have you arranged schooling?" Street Catherine's has agreed to assess her immediately, Victoria said. They understand she may need support after what she has been through. The sentence sounded kind until Grace heard the blade underneath it. After what she has been through. Not after what we failed to protect her from. Mr. Langford nodded with sympathy so clean it looked rehearsed. And therapy? A child psychologist recommended by our family office, Victoria answered. Someone with experience in attachment disruption. Grace's pen pressed into her palm. Attachment disruption. That was how they were going to name love when love came from the wrong tax bracket. Evan Cole sat 2 rows behind the council tables. His expression did not change, but his thumb paused above the screen. Mr. Langford took another photo from the stack. And during your supervised visit with Lily, did you attempt to reconnect with her in a gentle manner? I did, Victoria said. I knelt, so I would not frighten her. I told her we had missed her. I asked about her little bear. At the word bear, Lily pulled her sleeve to her mouth. Mr. Langford's voice softened. And how did Lily respond? She withdrew. She clung to Miss Holloway. She would not let me touch the toy. What did that suggest to you? Grace looked up. Victoria gave the judge a careful silence before answering. That someone had taught her to be afraid of us. Lily's breathing changed. Grace wanted to object. She wanted to tell the judge that Victoria had called Button Mr. Buttons, that Lily had corrected the name later in the car with tears of anger. But Grace stayed seated. Not because it did not hurt. Because anger was exactly the picture Mr. Langford had prepared a frame for. Across the aisle, Claire opened Victoria's visitation summary, read one line, then looked at Lily's coat pocket. Mr. Langford did not notice. Mrs. Hale, he said, what do you believe Lily needs most today? Victoria turned slightly toward the child. Enough for the court to see the gesture, not enough to risk Lily turning away. She needs to stop being made afraid of her own blood, Victoria said. She needs stability, a real home. A family that can give her the life Anna would have wanted. At the mention of her mother, Lily's hand moved under the table and found Grace's sleeve. Grace did not take it. She only left the sleeve where Lily could hold on without anyone calling it coaching. Judge Vale made a note. Then she looked at the clock above the clerk's desk. Sherdian Sushayifen. Mr. Langford, she said, I will hear from Miss Holloway shortly. But I want this understood now. If this court is asked to move a child by 4 o'clock today, I will require more than sentiment from either side. Victoria's tissue finally touched the corner of her eye. No tear followed. Claire saw that too. Grace was called after the photographs were taken down. No one removed them completely. Mr. Langford left the stack at the edge of the evidence table, close enough for the white columns and the yellow bedroom to remain in the judge's line of sight. Grace noticed that. Noticing had become part of how she survived night shifts, frightened children, and people who mistook quiet for weakness. The clerk swore her in. Grace raised her right hand, answered clearly, and sat. The witness chair felt too exposed. From there, she could see Lily at the foster parents' table, small beneath the navy coat, one hand hidden in the pocket where the drawing rested. Mr. Langford approached. Miss Holloway, you are currently employed as a nurse at Street Agnes Medical Center, correct? Yes. Night shift? Yes. Typically from 7 in the evening until 7 in the morning? 3 nights a week. And on those nights, Lily is cared for by whom? My neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez. She is licensed for emergency child care and approved in Lily's file. Mr. Langford smiled as if she had handed him the answer he wanted. So Lily spends 3 nights a week away from you. She sleeps in her own bed. Mrs. Alvarez stays in the apartment. But you are not there. No. The single word cost more than Grace let show. You rent your apartment? Yes. 1 bedroom? Yes. Is it true you sleep on a pull-out couch in the living room? Yes. And is it true you received a late rent notice in March? Lily's chair creaked. Yes. The rent was paid within 9 days. But it was late. Yes. The attorney turned slightly, not toward the judge this time, but toward the gallery. And you believe this is a stable environment for a child with trauma? Judge Vale looked up. Mr. Langford, ask questions. Do not testify. Of course, Your Honor. He looked back at Grace. Do you own a home, Miss Holloway? No. Are you married? No. Do you have extended family nearby? No. Do you have savings sufficient to provide private therapy, private school, and full-time care if Lily's needs increase? Grace felt the trap close around each word. I provide what her care plan requires. Please answer directly. No, Grace said. I do not have the kind of savings the Hale family has. Victoria lowered her gaze. Satisfaction passed briefly across Victoria's face. Mr. Langford lifted a printed photograph from his table. It showed Lily's navy coat, the patched sleeve enlarged beneath the courtroom lights. Grace's stomach tightened. Let us discuss care, he said. This is a photograph of the coat Lily Mercer wore to court today. Yes. It has been repaired. Yes. By you? Yes. Because you could not afford to replace it. A small sound came from Lily. Just breath catching against the back of her throat. Grace turned her head only enough to see her. Please answer, Miss Holloway. Because Lily asked me not to throw it away. Please answer the question asked. It is the answer. Mr. Langford's smile thinned. Grace knew she should stop there. A woman like her was allowed to be grateful, humble, apologetic. She was not allowed to sound wounded. But Lily was watching the photograph as if the coat itself had been taken from her body. Grace added, the sleeve tore during a nightmare. She crawled under the kitchen table and caught it on a screw. I repaired the coat because she asked whether broken things always get thrown away. Courtrooms rarely gave pain much respect. But Claire Whitman looked up from her notes. Mr. Langford stepped closer to the bench. Your Honor, I move to strike the narrative after the first sentence. Judge Vale studied Grace. The answer may stand in part. Move on. He did, but not far. Miss Holloway, have you ever told Lily she might not have to return to the Hale family? No. Have you ever told her she was safer with you? Grace paused. There were honest answers that sounded guilty in the wrong mouth. I told her she was safe in my apartment. With you. In my apartment, Grace repeated. And when she drew the red door, did you ask her whether the Hales had harmed her? No. Did you suggest the house might be real? No. Did you save the drawings? Yes. Why? Because her therapist advised me to, or because you needed a story strong enough to keep her. Lily's head snapped up. Mr. Langford returned to the photograph. Isn't it possible, Miss Holloway, that Lily has become attached to you because you have allowed her to believe you are the only person who fixes what is broken? Lily leaned toward Claire's end of the table, so quietly most people missed it. She does fix things, the child whispered. Claire heard it. Claire's pen stopped halfway through a word. Mr. Langford continued, unaware. And isn't it true that this attachment benefits you? Grace looked at him then. Not angrily. Anger would have been easier for him to use. It benefits Lily to be listened to, she said. And you believe the Hale family does not listen? I believe Lily should not be forced to prove fear before adults agree it matters. Judge Vale wrote something down. Victoria's hand moved to the pearls at her throat, then stilled. Mr. Langford closed the folder with a soft snap. No further questions at this time. Grace stepped down from the witness chair with her knees weaker than they had been when she stood. As she returned to the table, Lily did not reach for her hand. She reached for the patched sleeve. This time, Grace let her hold it. The judge called a 20-minute recess. Grace did not move at first. Around her, chairs scraped, folders closed, voices dropped into careful courtroom murmurs. Mr. Langford leaned toward Victoria with the relaxed expression of a man who believed the morning had gone exactly as planned. Lily still held Grace's sleeve. You did okay, Grace whispered. Lily looked at the evidence table where the photograph of her coat had been displayed. Did I? The question was too small for a child. Grace wanted to say yes in a way that could fix the whole room. Instead, she said, "You stayed here." That was brave. Lily nodded once, but her eyes moved toward the folded drawing in her pocket. Across the aisle, Claire Whitman was packing documents when Victoria touched her arm. "Do not let them turn this into a trauma performance," Victoria said under her breath. Claire glanced at Lily. "I understand." "No," Victoria said softly. "You understand the law. I need you to understand the danger of letting a child's imagination become evidence." The words were polite. The warning inside them was not. Evan Cole stood near the back row with his tablet held against his chest. He had watched hundreds of hearings, and most left the same taste in his mouth. Procedure trying to fit around pain without touching it. He should have gone to the hallway. Instead, he looked again at the drawing. Grace had placed a copy in the blue folder. During testimony, it had been marked only as a demonstrative exhibit, not evidence. That distinction mattered in court. It also bothered him. A child's repeated image was not proof by itself. But repeated images had timelines. Evan opened Lily's digital case file and searched the therapist uploads. Dr. Elise Warren had scanned 6 drawings over 3 months. Red door. Crooked tree. Upstairs window. No broken line until this morning. He pulled up the school report next. February 14. Student became distressed when paper hearts were taped to a newly painted red classroom door. Student hid under reading table. Calmed only after foster parent arrived. That report was dated before Victoria Hale filed her emergency custody motion, before the motion meant before the legal battle, before Grace had any reason to invent a fear for court. Evan had misjudged people before. That was the problem. 2 years earlier, he had believed a boy who described a basement no one could find. Evan pushed too hard without enough documentation. The agency reprimanded him. The court dismissed his concern. 3 months later, police found the basement. Since then, Evan had made himself into a man of dates, signatures, and verified addresses. Feelings could be denied. Paper survived longer. He returned to Lily's file and opened the property history attachment from the original intake. Most addresses were ordinary: Anna Mercer's apartment, the emergency placement home, Grace Holloway's residence. One line near the bottom had been partially redacted. Associated family property inactive. No street number, no owner listed, just a parcel reference and a note, removed from active investigation, insufficient relevance. Evan copied the parcel reference into the county property database. The courthouse, Wi-Fi, hesitated, then loaded. A company name appeared. Hale Family Holdings, LLC. The property had been sold 9 months earlier, shortly after Lily entered foster care. No current photographs were attached, but an archived listing image sat behind a thumbnail marked unavailable. He tapped it. The image opened slowly from top to bottom. Roof. White siding. Second floor window. Then the front door. Red. Beside it, a tree leaned toward the house. Evan did not breathe for several seconds. It was not exact. The photograph was old, blurred by sunlight. But the tree line matched. The window placement matched. Even the shallow crack in the concrete step looked like the little dark mark Lily had drawn again and again. He looked up. Victoria was standing near the double doors now, speaking to Mr. Langford. Her face was calm, but one hand was closed around the handle of her purse. Claire stood a few feet away, watching Evan watch the tablet. Their eyes met. Evan turned the screen slightly, not enough for the gallery to see, but enough for Claire to understand that something had changed. Claire did not move closer. She only looked once at Victoria, then back at the image. The bailiff announced that court would resume in 5 minutes. Grace gathered the blue folder, but Evan stepped toward her before she could return to counsel table. "Miss Holloway," he said quietly, Did Lily ever give you an address for the house? Grace shook her head. Never. Did you ever show her a photograph of any Hale property? No? Evan's eyes moved to Lily. He lowered his voice. Lily, I'm not going to ask you to explain anything right now. The child's fingers tightened around the paper cup. I only need to know one thing. Did the house in your drawing have another door? Grace looked at him. Evan regretted the question the moment it left his mouth. But Lily did not look confused. She looked at Victoria. Then she whispered, the back one didn't lock right. A clerk opened the courtroom door. Party's back inside. Evan closed the tablet against his chest. Grace saw something in his face that had not been there before. It was fear. Not of Lily, for her. When court resumed, Victoria changed tactics. She no longer looked like a grieving aunt asking for mercy. She looked like a woman who had felt a floorboard shift beneath her and decided to step harder. Mr. Langford rose before Grace had fully settled back into her chair. Your Honor, given what occurred during recess, my client has serious concerns about the integrity of the child's therapeutic material. Judge Vale looked over her glasses. Be specific. Miss Holloway and Mr. Cole appear to be treating a child's drawings as investigative leads. We believe there is a real risk that Lily's therapy has been influenced, perhaps unintentionally, by Miss Holloway's desire to maintain placement. Grace felt the words hit the table between them. Influenced. Desire. Placement. Clean words. Dangerous words. Evan stood. Your Honor, I reviewed file dates already submitted to the agency. The drawings and school incident report predate the Hale emergency motion. Mr. Langford did not turn. And yet Mr. Cole just questioned Lily in the hallway about a door. I asked one question based on a possible property match. A match to what? Langford asked sharply. Evan did not answer fast enough. Victoria leaned toward her attorney, and the smallest break crossed Victoria's composure. Not panic. Calculation. Judge Vale held up a hand. No one is going to conduct a second investigation in my courtroom without proper foundation. Mr. Cole, if you have something relevant, you will submit it properly. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Langford seized the opening. Then, until such foundation exists, we request that Dr. Warren's therapy notes and all drawings collected during therapy be sealed from further use in today's custody determination. Grace's hand went cold on the folder. If the therapy notes were sealed, the timeline vanished. The red door became only a drawing in a frightened child's pocket. Grace's word against Victoria's money. Lily's silence against a family portrait. Your Honor, Mara Singh began. Those records are already part of the child's welfare file. And now, Langford said, they are being used to build a narrative that my client cannot meaningfully challenge before 4 o'clock. There it was again. The hour everyone had started pretending was administrative. Judge Vale looked at the clock. Shayidin Arshalufen. Mrs. Hale, the judge said, do you have personal knowledge of the house depicted in the drawing? Victoria's face softened with practiced sadness. No, Your Honor. I have seen many houses in my family's life. Children absorb things. They combine images. After everything Lily has been through, I would be hesitant to assign meaning to a crayon picture. Grace watched Evan's jaw tighten. Judge Vale turned to Grace. Miss Holloway, have you ever shown Lily photographs of Hale properties? No, Your Honor. Discussed them? No. Victoria's voice slipped in before the judge could continue. That house is gone. The sentence landed too quickly. Not loud. Not dramatic. Almost weary. As if she had been pushed into correcting a minor detail. Then, Victoria understood what she had said. Her chin lifted. I mean, if this is the property, I think Mr. Cole is implying. Many old family properties have been sold. That does not make them sinister. Evan looked down at his tablet. Claire Whitman stopped writing. Grace did not move, because movement would have given Victoria something to aim at. Judge Vale's pen hovered above her notes. Mrs. Hale, A moment ago you said you had no personal knowledge of the house. I said, I had no personal knowledge that Lily's drawing represents any real house. That is not the same answer. A thin pause opened. Mr. Langford stepped in. Your Honor, my client is trying to respond to vague insinuations without knowing what property Mr. Cole has found. This is precisely why the court should not allow these materials to prejudice the custody issue. Judge Vale did not look pleased with anyone. Here is what the court will do, she said. Any party seeking to rely on the drawings, therapy records, school reports, or property records must submit supporting foundation by 3:30 this afternoon. No new material after that unless I specifically request it. Grace heard the new deadline settle over the room. 3:30. 30 minutes before Lily could be moved. Mr. Langford nodded as if he had won something. Thank you, Your Honor. Victoria's shoulders eased. Then Claire's phone vibrated on the table. She glanced down, intending only to silence it, but the preview was visible long enough for her to read the sender, Hale Family Office. The subject line read, Custody, Trust Activation. Claire turned the screen away, her pulse changing beneath her collar. She should not open it in court. She opened it anyway. Only the first lines appeared. Once custody is restored, the trust provisions can be activated through Victoria as family guardian. Timing remains critical. Avoid discussion of trust language unless raised directly. Claire locked the phone. Across the aisle, Lily had folded herself smaller in the chair. Grace leaned close, keeping her voice below the scrape of papers. You're still here. Lily looked at the judge's clock. Until 4. Grace wanted to lie. To say no one would take her. To promise what the law had not given her permission to promise. Instead, she slid her sleeve closer. Lily held on. At the other table, Victoria whispered to Claire, file the motion to limit the therapy notes. Claire did not answer. Claire. The young lawyer looked at her client. Victoria had to repeat herself to someone whose job was to believe her. At 12:18, Evan Cole stopped trying to make the courthouse Wi-Fi do what it did not want to do. He borrowed the clerk's landline instead. Grace watched from the hallway bench while Lily sat beside her with button hidden under the coat, one fabric ear peeking out near the zipper. Court had recessed for lunch, though no one in Grace's corner had eaten. The vending machine sandwich in her tote had gone warm. Lily had taken 2 crackers and tucked the third into her sleeve. Grace pretended not to see it. Some habits were not disobedience. They were history. Evan stood near the window, one finger pressed against his tablet, speaking in the flat professional tone he used when urgency had to sound like procedure. I need the archived listing packet for parcel 18 to 407, he said. Today. Not the public thumbnail. The full packet. Ownership history, sale, date, exterior photos, agent notes if available. He listened. Then his face tightened. I understand there is a request process. A child may be transferred by court order in less than 4 hours. Across the hall, Victoria sat with Mr. Langford and Claire outside conference room B. A legal pad lay open between them. Victoria was speaking quietly, her hands folded, but Grace noticed she had stopped looking at Lily. That frightened Grace more than the staring had. When people looked at Lily, Grace could measure the threat. When they stopped looking, they were planning around her. Claire's phone buzzed again. She turned it face down without reading it. Victoria noticed. Something you need to handle? Victoria asked. No, Claire said. The answer sounded too quick. Evan ended his call and approached Grace. The county recorder will email a certified property summary. The old listing photographs are held by the brokerage that handled the sale. I'm waiting. Will that be enough? Grace asked. Not by itself. Lily's shoulders rose. Evan saw it and changed his voice. Slower, not falsely soft. A picture of a house can show the house exists. It cannot show you we're there. Lily stared at the tile floor. Grace wanted to shield her from the sentence, but Evan was right. The court would not build a custody decision on resemblance alone. Then Lily reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the drawing. She unfolded it on her knees, smoothing the creases with both thumbs. "It had a step," she said. Grace went still. Evan crouched a few feet away, careful not to crowd her. "What kind of step?" Lily drew one finger beneath the red door. "Not straight. It went down here." Grace looked at the picture. The small dark mark under the door, the one she had thought was shadow, cut diagonally across the step. Evan opened the thumbnail image again and enlarged it until pixels blurred. The concrete step beneath the red door had a crack running down the left side. His email chimed. The brokerage packet arrived 3 minutes later. Evan opened the attachment. The first photograph was front-facing. White House. Red door. Crooked tree. Second floor window. The second showed the porch step. Cracked on the left. The third showed the back of the house. A narrow door with peeling green paint. A rusted latch near the frame. Lily made a sound so small. Grace felt it more than heard it. Grace reached for her, then stopped before touching. "May I?" Lily nodded. Grace put one hand lightly over Lily's sleeve. Evan scrolled to the sale record. Seller, Hale Family Holdings, LLC. Sale date, 8 days after Lily Mercer entered emergency foster placement. Agent note, seller requested expedited private sale. No interior showings after initial inspection. Evan read the line twice. Grace looked toward Victoria. Victoria was watching them now. Not Lily. The tablet, Evan stood. "I need to submit this." Mr. Langford rose from the table across the hall. "Submit what?" Evan did not answer him. He moved toward the clerk's office. Langford followed. "Mr. Cole, if you intend to ambush my client with unverified material, it is a certified property summary and brokerage packet," Evan said. "Brokerage photographs do not prove this child was ever near that house." "No," Evan said, stopping at the clerk's door. "They prove your client's statement was incomplete." Victoria had come closer without making a sound. "My statement was not incomplete," she said. "I said I did not know whether the drawing represented that house." Grace heard the shift. That house. Not a house. Claire heard it too. A woman in a gray cardigan hurried from the elevator holding a manila envelope. She was breathing hard, her silver hair loose from a clip. "Evan Cole?" she asked. Evan turned. "I'm Ruth Calder," the woman said. "You called about the old Hale property." Victoria's face emptied. Ruth looked past Evan and saw Lily. The envelope lowered. "Oh," she whispered. "You got bigger." Lily pressed herself into Grace's side. Victoria stepped forward. "This is inappropriate. That woman has no business approaching the child." Ruth's eyes did not leave Lily. "I lived across the street from that red door for 26 years, she said. "And I called someone about that little girl before." No one came in time. The hallway seemed to narrow around those words. Evan took the envelope. "What is this?" "Printed stills from my doorbell camera," Ruth said. "Old system, terrible quality. But the date is on them." Mr. Langford's voice sharpened. "Your Honor, none of this has been admitted." Judge Vale appeared at the courtroom doorway, summoned by the raised voices. "No," she said, looking from the envelope to Lily's white face. "But I am going to look at it before I decide whether a child leaves this courthouse today." Victoria's hand found the pearls at her throat. This time, she pulled hard enough that the strand bit into her skin. Victoria Hale did not deny the house. That was the first thing Grace noticed. When the court reconvened, Mr. Langford stood with the speed of a man trying to reach the judge before the facts did. The brokerage packet, Ruth Calder's envelope, and Evan's property summary had been marked for review, but not yet admitted. That gave him a narrow place to stand. He used it. "Your Honor," he said, "we are now seeing exactly why emergency transfer is necessary. This child has been surrounded by adults who are turning fragments of fear into a constructed memory. Grace felt Lily's hand slip away from her sleeve. Constructed memory. Mr. Langford placed both palms on the table. A foster parent saves drawings. A social worker searches property databases. A neighbor appears with old doorbell images. And suddenly, a child who has barely spoken is being asked to validate a theory. Evan stood. That is not what happened. Did you ask Lily about a back door during recess? Yes. After you found an old property image? Yes, but... And before any mental health professional could assess whether the question might contaminate her memory? Evan stopped. The question found the bruise Evan had been hiding, not because Langford was right, but because he had found the one place Evan already feared. Judge Vale turned to him. Mr. Cole? Evan's voice lost some of its steel. I asked one limited question. I should have waited. Victoria lowered her eyes, as if wounded by his admission. Mr. Langford turned to Grace. And Miss Holloway, did you tell Lily this morning that judges listen to what people bring them? Grace's mouth went dry. Yes. So, the child knew she needed to bring something. She asked me whether judges know when grown-ups lie. And you answered in a way that placed responsibility on her. No, I was trying to reassure her. By telling her truth must be brought carefully, Grace remembered the bus window. Lily's reflection. The question about little truths being stepped on. I told her we bring the truth carefully because I did not want her to feel helpless. Langford nodded slowly, as though she had confessed. There it is, Your Honor. This is not malice. It is worse in some ways. It is emotional over-involvement dressed as protection. Lily folded into herself. Grace wanted to reach for her. She did not. Every movement had become something a lawyer could translate. Victoria finally spoke, soft enough that the judge had to lean in. No one is accusing Miss Holloway of cruelty. I believe she loves Lily, but love can become possession when it is not bound by family, history, or law. Grace looked at her. Family, history, law. Victoria wore all three like clean gloves. Judge Vale made a note. Mrs. Hale, you will speak through counsel unless asked a direct question. I understand, Your Honor, but the sentence had already done its work. Mr. Langford lifted the copy of Lily's drawing again. The court is being asked to believe that this picture is a map, but children draw from nightmares, from stories, from overheard phrases. There is no proof that Lily Mercer was abandoned at that property. There is no proof that my client harmed her. There is only a red door and a foster mother who needs it to mean something. Ruth Calder shifted in the back row. Evan glanced at her, but Judge Vale had not yet invited testimony. Then Victoria made her second mistake. The back latch on that property was broken for years, she said, with controlled impatience. Anyone in the family could have known that. It proves nothing. The words had barely left her mouth when Claire Whitman looked up. Mr. Langford turned his head. Grace's fingers curled around the edge of the table. Judge Vale's pen stopped. Mrs. Hale, the judge said, who mentioned a latch. Victoria blinked once. I assumed that was what Mr. Cole was implying. No, Evan said. I asked about a back door. Lily used the word lock. No one said latch. Langford stepped in quickly. Your Honor, common phrasing. Sit down, Mr. Langford. He sat. The judge looked at Victoria. How did you know about a broken latch? Victoria's face changed by almost nothing. A smaller breath, a slower blink. But Grace had spent months learning the language of almost nothing. I visited the property as a child, Victoria said. It was a family house. The same house you first said you had no personal knowledge of? I said I did not know whether the drawing represented that house. Claire closed the folder in front of her. Not loudly. Enough. Victoria's eyes flicked to her. Claire. Claire did not open the folder again. Judge Vale leaned back. Mr. Cole, I want the property materials, the school report, and Dr. Warren's timeline submitted before 3:30. I also want Miss Calder available for questioning. Mr. Langford, you will have the opportunity to challenge Foundation. But this court is not sealing a child's therapeutic history because it has become inconvenient. Mr. Langford searched for an answer and found none ready. Grace turned slightly toward Lily. The child was staring at Victoria now. Not with confusion, with recognition. Victoria saw it and looked away first. That frightened Grace almost as much as the broken latch. Because until that moment, Victoria had acted as if Lily's silence belonged to her. Now she knew it might not. At 3-7, the courthouse hallway began to feel smaller. Not because more people had entered it, but because every person there knew time had started choosing sides. Evan Cole stood at the clerk's counter with 3 sets of copies: the certified property summary, the brokerage packet, and Dr. Warren's therapy timeline. Ruth Calder sat on the bench nearest the courtroom door, both hands around her manila envelope as if someone might try to take it from her. Grace sat with Lily at the far end of the hall. Lily had not spoken since Victoria said latch. That word had done something to her. Not broken her open, not exactly. It had turned a key somewhere behind her eyes. Grace wanted to ask what she remembered. She did not. Instead, she opened the vending machine crackers and placed 2 on a napkin between them. Lily picked up one, broke it in half, and gave the larger piece to Button. You know he can't eat, Grace said gently. He can hold it. Grace nodded. That counts. Across the hall, Claire Whitman walked into conference room B with Victoria and Mr. Langford. The door did not close all the way. Grace heard only pieces. Inadmissible unless Foundation. Calder is unreliable. Then, Victoria's voice, low and sharp. Do not let the trust become part of this hearing. Claire's answer was quieter. If the court asks about motive, the court will not ask if you do your job. A chair moved. Mr. Langford said, Claire, pull the financial attachment from the supplemental packet. It is irrelevant to temporary custody. There was a pause. Then Claire said, the attachment is referenced in the petition. Then leave the reference, Langford replied. Not the page. Grace looked toward Evan. He had heard it too. Claire came out 2 minutes later, carrying a folder against her ribs. Her face had lost the careful smoothness she wore in court. She looked young now. Not innocent. Just awake. Victoria followed her to the doorway. Claire, she said, sweet again, because sweetness was safer with witnesses nearby. Families are complicated. Anna made emotional decisions near the end. You cannot let one unstable woman rewrite years of history with a drawing. Claire's hand tightened on the folder. Did Anna want Lily with you? Victoria's smile stayed, but her eyes did not. My sister was not well. That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters. Claire lowered her gaze first. For a moment, Grace thought the young lawyer had folded. Then Claire walked to the clerk's counter. Excuse me, she said. I need to file a corrected supplemental disclosure. Mr. Langford turned so quickly, his chair hit the wall. Claire. She did not look back. The prior packet was incomplete. Victoria stepped into the hall. That is privileged material. Claire placed the page on the counter. It was already cited in your custody petition. Evan moved closer, but did not interfere. The clerk stamped the page at 3:18. The ink mark landed. Received. A small, ordinary word. One that could keep a child from disappearing behind a bigger one like family. Judge Vale returned to the bench 10 minutes later. The courtroom reassembled with a different weight. Mr. Langford's mouth was tight. Victoria sat very straight, but no longer arranged herself for pity. Claire stood before the judge. Your Honor, she said, before the court reviews the supplemental custody filing, I need to correct the record. Langford rose. Your Honor, Associate Counsel is mistaken. There is no correction necessary. Claire continued before fear could catch her. Page 12 of the trust attachment was omitted from the packet filed this morning. Judge Vale extended her hand. The clerk passed the stamped page forward. Grace did not know legal language well enough to understand every line, but she understood the phrase Judge Vale read twice. Upon restoration of legal custody to a biological family guardian, the Mercer Child Trust may be activated for administrative control by said guardian until the beneficiary reaches majority. Grace did not understand every legal word, but she understood enough. If Victoria took Lily home, Victoria would also take control of the money. Judge Vale looked up. "Mrs. Hale, were you aware of this provision?" Victoria's expression did not change fast enough. "My interest has always been Lily's welfare." "That was not my question." Mr. Langford objected. The judge overruled him. Then Ruth Calder was called for limited foundation. She walked to the front with her envelope and a limp Grace had not noticed before. Her voice trembled at first, but the trembling did not make it weak. "I lived across from the Hale property," Ruth said. "And I have dated stills the court needs to see." Victoria stared at the table. Ruth opened the envelope just enough for the clerk to mark its contents. "They show the porch, the back of the house, and Anna Mercer at that property," Ruth said. Judge Vale leaned forward. Lily pressed button against her mouth. This time, when Lily reached for Grace's sleeve, Grace covered her hand fully. No one objected. At 3:46, Judge Vale asked Victoria Hale one question. Why was page 12 omitted? Victoria sat in the witness chair with her hands resting neatly in her lap. The pearls at her throat were intact, but Grace could see a faint red line where the strand had pressed into her skin. "My legal team handled the filing," Victoria said. "I trusted them to include what was relevant." Mr. Langford stood. "Your Honor, I must object to the implication that Mrs. Hale had personal involvement in clerical preparation." Judge Vale did not look at him. "Sit down." He sat. Victoria's eyes moved to Claire. Claire did not rescue her. Judge Vale held the stamped page between two fingers. "This provision gives administrative control of the Mercer Child Trust to the biological family guardian once legal custody is restored. Is that correct?" Victoria's mouth softened into injury. "Anna wanted Lily cared for." "That was not my question." "Yes," Victoria said, "that is what the provision says. And you were asking this court to restore temporary custody today." "I was asking this court to return a child to her family." There it was. The sentence Victoria had carried all morning like a polished bowl, offering it to anyone willing to drink from it. She turned slightly toward the judge. "Your Honor, I understand how this looks now that Miss Holloway and Mr. Cole have dragged financial language into a child welfare matter. But I have sat here all day listening to my family be treated like criminals because a traumatized child drew a red door." Lily's shoulders folded inward. Grace kept her hand where Lily could find it. Victoria continued, her voice gaining warmth as if warmth could cover the cracks. "My sister died with many regrets. She was unstable near the end. She isolated Lily. She refused help. We tried to bring them back into the family, and now that same isolation is being repeated by Miss Holloway." Grace felt every head tilt toward her. Victoria looked at her then. "I believe Grace loves Lily. But love without boundaries can become a cage. Today, this child has been placed between adults who want her to perform fear on command." Ruth Calder made a sharp sound in the back row. Judge Vale lifted one hand. Ruth pressed her lips together. Mr. Langford rose again, more carefully this time. "Your Honor, my client's point is simple. There is no admissible proof that Lily Mercer was abandoned at the Hale property. There is no proof Mrs. Hale placed her there, no proof she benefited from harm, and no proof this trust provision drove the custody petition. What we have is speculation stacked on sympathy." Victoria lowered her eyes at the right moment. The performance was clean enough to be dangerous. But she also saw how close it came to working. Mr. Langford had chosen the one truth he still owned. Most evidence in the room did not yet say what Lily had lived. It circled the house. It circled the trust. It circled Victoria. It had not entered the red door. Judge Vale turned to Evan. Mr. Cole, Foundation. Evan stood with a folder open. His voice was steady again, but not cold. The property record confirms the house in the drawing was owned by Hale Family Holdings LLC until 9 months ago. The sale occurred 8 days after Lily Mercer entered emergency foster placement. The archived listing photographs match recurring details in Lily's drawings: red front door, leaning tree, second floor cracked window, damaged porch step. He placed each photograph on the document camera. The monitor showed them in order: house, door, tree, window, step. Then the child's drawing beside them. The crayon lines looked smaller on the screen. Not weaker. Smaller in the way a child's hand is smaller than the thing it is trying to survive. Evan continued. Dr. Warren's therapy timeline shows Lily drew this house repeatedly before the Hale emergency motion. The school incident report shows a distress response to a red classroom door before litigation began. Mr. Langford crossed his arms. None of that places her at the property. No, Evan said. Mrs. Calder does. Ruth took the stand with the envelope in both hands. She gave her name. Her address. 26 years across from the old Hale property. A retired mail carrier. No relation to Grace Holloway. No contact with the foster agency until Evan called the number attached to her old complaint. Judge Vale leaned forward. What did you see? Ruth looked at Lily, then forced herself to look at the judge. I saw that child on the porch after dark. Twice for sure. Maybe more. She was little. Younger than now. She sat beside the red door with a backpack and a stuffed toy. Once, she knocked for a long time. No one opened. Grace understood then that Ruth had not seen one night. She had seen pieces of several. Victoria's face stayed smooth, but her hand tightened on the armrest. Ruth removed 3 printed stills. They're poor quality. My camera was old. But the dates are there. The first still showed the porch light and a small shape beside the door. The second showed the same shape near the back of the house. The third showed Anna Mercer at the front door 2 days later, one hand raised to knock, the other wrist darkened by bruising. Judge Vale's mouth compressed. Mr. Langford stood. Your Honor, these images are grainy. We cannot identify. I can, Lily said. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Grace felt the child's hand leave her sleeve. Lily was looking at the screen. Judge Vale softened her voice. Lily, you do not have to speak unless you want to. Victoria leaned forward quickly. Sweetheart, no one is asking you to remember scary things. Lily looked at her. The word sweetheart seemed to land between them and fail. You said no one left me there, Lily said. Victoria's eyes shone. Because we didn't. Lily pointed to the third still, to Anna at the red door. Mom came back. Lily swallowed, then looked at the drawing on the document camera. She knocked. I was inside. I heard her. The back lock was broken, but the chair was under the handle. Grace's breath caught. Not because Lily had spoken, because now Grace understood why the child had drawn only the front door. The back door had not been escape. It had been almost escape. Victoria's voice thinned. Lily, you were very young. You may be mixing memories. You told me not to open it, Lily said. Mr. Langford half rose. Your Honor. Judge Vale's voice cut through him. Do not. Lily's hands were shaking now, but her eyes stayed on Victoria. You said if I opened the back door, Mom would take me away and lose everything. You said good girls wait. Victoria's face changed. Not fully. Not for everyone. But enough for Grace. Enough for Evan. Enough for Claire, who closed her eyes as if something inside her had finally stopped arguing. Lily picked up the drawing from the table and held it against her coat. She didn't leave me at the red door, she said. You did. The clock above the clerk's desk clicked to 3:59. Judge Vale removed her glasses. When she spoke, every word arrived measured. The court will not sign the temporary custody transfer order. Lily Mercer will remain in her current placement pending emergency review. The trust shall not be activated or administered by any Hale family representative until further order of this court. I am referring the property evidence, witness statement, and filing irregularities for immediate investigation. Victoria stood too quickly. Your Honor, this is outrageous. You are allowing a foster parent to steal my sister's child. Grace rose, but not toward Victoria, toward the bench. Your Honor, she said, and her own voice surprised her by holding, I am not asking the court to give Lily to me like property. I am asking the court not to send her anywhere her fear has not been heard. Judge Vale looked at Lily, then at Grace. That, she said, is the first request today that has treated the child as a person. Mr. Langford gathered his papers with hands that no longer looked elegant. Victoria did not look at Lily as she left the witness chair. She looked at the trust page. And that told the court what the red door had been trying to say all along. The order was signed at 4/7, not the one Victoria Hale had come to collect. Judge Vale signed an emergency protection order, a hold on the Mercer Child Trust, and a referral into the old Hale property, the omitted filing page, and Anna Mercer's final months. The clerk stamped each page with the same ordinary motion she had used all day. Grace watched the ink land. After everything, justice did not sound like thunder. It sounded like paper. Victoria left first. She did not look at Lily. She did not reach for her. She did not say the child's name once after the judge read the order. Mr. Langford gathered the photographs of the yellow bedroom, the long dining table, the white columned house, and placed them back into his case as if the pictures had betrayed him. Claire stayed behind with the empty folder against her side. Grace made the choice easier for her. You filed the page, she said. Claire's eyes lifted. I should have done it sooner. Yes, Grace said. The answer was not cruel. It was clean. Claire nodded, accepting both the gratitude and the judgment inside it. Evan Cole spoke with Ruth Calder near the clerk's desk, taking down names, dates, old complaint numbers. When Ruth passed Lily, she stopped a careful distance away. I'm sorry, Ruth said. I should have kept calling. Lily held Button under her chin. Then she said, You came today. Ruth covered her mouth and turned toward the wall. No one rushed Lily after that. No one told her she was brave in the loud way adults sometimes do when they want a child's pain to become a lesson. Dr. Warren was called. A safety plan was written. Grace's placement was extended pending review. Visits from the Hale family were suspended until the investigation could determine who had known what and when. At 5:32, Grace and Lily walked out of the courthouse. The rain had stopped. Water clung to the courthouse steps, reflecting pieces of gray sky and passing headlights. Grace carried the blue folder under one arm. Lily carried the drawing. At the bottom of the steps, Lily looked back once. Grace did not ask what she saw. The red door, her mother, Victoria's face. The chair under the handle, maybe all of it, maybe none of it in words yet. Healing did not arrive because a judge signed paper. It arrived later, if people kept the promises the paper made. On the bus home, Lily fell asleep against Grace's side with Button trapped between them. Grace stayed awake through every stop, one arm around the folder, the other resting near Lily's shoulder. She was still afraid. That surprised her. She had thought winning would remove fear, but it only changed its shape. Now there were interviews ahead. Investigators. Questions. New hearings. Nights when Lily might remember more. Mornings, when she might wish she had said nothing. Grace looked at the child asleep beside her and understood that protection was not one grand moment in court. It was choosing to stay after the grand moment ended. Back at the apartment, Mrs. Alvarez had left soup on the stove and a note on the counter. Eat before you argue with me. Lily read it twice and almost smiled. Grace warmed 2 bowls. Lily ate 3 spoonfuls, then 4, then pushed the bowl aside and reached for paper. Grace did not stop her. The first lines were familiar. A house. A roof. A tree. Grace set her spoon down. Lily colored slowly this time. No hard scraping, no broken crayon. She drew a door, but it was not red. She left it white at first, then outlined it in yellow. The door was open. Inside the house, Lily drew 2 chairs at a small table. One big, one small. Then she added a 3rd chair near the corner. Grace's throat tightened, but she kept her voice easy. Is that our apartment? Lily studied the picture, serious as a judge. Then she shook her head. She picked up the purple crayon and wrote beneath the drawing with uneven letters. The place that opens. Grace looked at the words for a long time. Then Lily slid the paper across the table, not to hide it under a pillow, not to fold it into a pocket, but to leave it where both of them could see. Grace reached for a strawberry magnet and pinned the drawing to the refrigerator. The old red door pictures stayed in the blue folder. This one stayed in the kitchen. That night, when Grace turned off the light, Lily paused in the hallway and looked at the apartment door. Can we leave it unlocked? Grace checked the chain, then the deadbolt, then crouched beside her. We can keep it locked, she said. And still open it when you want me to. Lily thought about that. Then she put her hand in Grace's. Okay, she said. That night, she walked to bed without looking back.